feels very on brand for me that my very first read of the year was the story of a woman who develops a deep connection to her printer. But this also is still different from the sentient object romance category that I've been kind of obsessed with for the past year to 2 years. Because number one, this is not a romance. I think the tagline on the cover is a bit misleading. This is a story of girl meets printer. This is a friendship between a woman and her printer. Platonic soulmates, in my opinion. And there is love. They're just not in love with each other. I also feel like people treated this as being much freakier and weirder than it actually was. I really, really enjoyed this, and it reminds me a lot of Convenience Store Woman in a lot of different ways, not just in the writing style and this sort of being stream of consciousness writing from a very out of place, awkward, deeply misunderstood woman, but in this unconventional love she has for her workplace, essentially, or an element of her workplace. She's not immensely committed to the building like in Convenience Store Woman, but she is to her printer in her little corner of the entire office. And this book tackles a lot, mainly having to do with the loneliness that follows you when you are an outcast in some way. And what I really enjoy about our nameless, sort of anonymous narrator in hard copy is that she's not an outcast that is especially jarring in any way. She's never fit in, but this has never been something that's very noticeable. She just sort of fades and disappears into the background. When people do take notice of her, they do take notice of how odd she is and don't really enjoy being around her, but it's nothing intense. There's just a perpetual, everlasting disconnect between her and the people going in and out of her life across her entire life. A lot of this disconnect having to do with her inability to ever really truly respond correctly to any circumstance. We see her retell events from her past that she was witness to regarding intense, really, really traumatic acts of violence that didn't happen to her but happened to people around her, mainly the women around her. We get glimpses into how she was raised, and we see these really uncomfortable, awkward interactions that she has with her colleagues in the workplace, and she never really knows what to do throughout anything. When she does try to make connection, when she does try to intervene, when there's a problem, when she does try to be proactive about literally anything, it falls flat, and it's something that she immediately feels the need to hide and be ashamed of from that point on. She failed at something big or small, it will never be replicated again, and no one will ever know about it. No one but her beloved printer in the office. And it's not even that she has this connection that she feels drawn to printers in general. It's just this one very specific printer. She feels this sort of psychic bond almost to this printer, and it really comes about in these moments of being immensely overwhelmed. At the beginning of the story, our narrator is diagnosed with being allergic to exertion. If her heart rate gets too fast or too high, she could die. Not only does she need to heavily monitor and be mindful of her physical activity, she also needs to be very, very hyper aware of how things make her feel. And she's not really passionate about anything except for her ability to maintain her routine with her printer. She hates interacting with people. She doesn't enjoy it. But in a moment of panic and being emotionally overwhelmed, she feels that the printer is comforting her in his own way. The printer speaks a language that only she has been careful enough, has been attentive enough to truly understand. But when some of her coworkers start to notice that she's speaking to her printer when no one's around, that she's speaking to it and having full conversations with it and bearing her soul to it, sharing secrets with this printer that she has never spoken out loud before, she is put on leave for her own mental health. And she really doesn't have a way to explain what she's really doing and why she's doing it in a way that will really help or stop that intervention. She just needs to do whatever she can to be reunited with her printer and not let that separation happen again. Her job has become a means to an end beyond financial security, but also to maintain this relationship, this really meaningful connection that she's established. I really enjoyed the writing of this. It's so whimsical in a way, though I don't know how much of that is from the original text and how much of that sort of like develops in the translation of it. But my favorite section is the section told from the perspective of the printer. I won't go too much into it or really into it at all because I think that's something everyone should experience. I think the very brief time we get in the mind of the printer is so wonderful. He's so intelligent and introspective in a way that I was not expecting and really, really enjoyed. But this book had me thinking a lot about loneliness, and specifically stories like this, stories of an out-of-place woman who doesn't know how to interact with other human beings, instead turning to an object that may or may not be alive, finding solace in an unconventional, typically non-living entity. And so again, it made me think a lot of convenience store woman and like these expectations of this other out-of-place woman who doesn't know how to interact with people, but does love her convenience store. It also had me thinking a lot of Encanto with Mirabel and like the house. She's so isolated from everyone in her family but the house, and finds connection in the one other isolated member of her family that has also found solace in a different way within the house. It made me think a lot about the story of Pinocchio and Geppetto, who created a boy, who created a child out of wood and went on this journey to make sure that he remained protected, and went to great lengths, including being swallowed by a whale, to chase this little puppet boy because he just loved him so much, and this was his only family. There's something very sad and interesting in these stories of human beings unable to connect at all, truly with another human being in a way that is fulfilling or necessary for them, where they're sort of chased into the arms of a non-living entity or non-traditionally living entity. But I'm also so interested in these stories because then in this intense bond that a person makes with this non-person, you see where like the humanity blossoms in that object, which then always makes me think about what it does mean to be human and what is humanity at the end of the day. How no matter what, the human experience will always be defined by love and connection, even when people are not experiencing the love and connection they deserve. The writing of hard copy is very stream of consciousness in nature. We jump from topic to topic, memory to memory, constantly. Everything feels very fluid and flows in and out of each other, in and out of itself. And we go from moments of peace to moments of horror and shock pretty quickly, but not in a way that was very off-putting. And I also just really enjoyed the quirky, kind of funny approach to overcoming trauma, but also overcoming the existential dread that comes with an unfulfilling life. The story feels a bit jumbled and all over the place at times, most of the time, but I would also expect nothing less from a narrator that is stuck in this really quiet, seemingly never-ending, monotonous cycle, where she is also now restricted in her ability to let off steam. It's not a book that touches on one topic very seriously or very in depth, but a book that covers a range of semi-related topics very briefly and in a not very cohesive manner, in a way that does click. One of the most surprising elements of the relationship formed between our narrator and her printer is sort of where they do relate immensely. They relate immensely in being disposable, not just at this workplace, but in the world. Like our narrator, the printer is slightly damaged and not ideal to work with. Like our narrator, the printer can and will be replaced with a newer, better model eventually. Like our narrator, the printer is not something that the world at large sees as very significant or special. And I think that this was a really great start to the year. I think this really sets the tone for 2025, whatever that means.